I still think about that night more often than I should, because nothing about it ever settled into a normal memory. My throat still tightens when I see empty roads after dark. It started when my car gave up on a stretch of road outside town. Not dramatic, just the engine cutting out like it had decided it was done for the night. And I remember sitting there with my friend in the passenger seat staring at the dashboard like it might explain itself. Neither of us said much at first, not because we were calm, but because we were both doing that thing where you pretend a problem is temporary. If you do not acknowledge it too quickly, when it became obvious the car was not coming back, we got out and stood on the roadside, looking in both directions for help that did not come. The road was long and flat and stretched into dark open land with no buildings close enough to feel useful. My friend kept checking his phone, even though we both knew there was no signal, and I remember how he kept shifting his weight from one foot to the other, like standing still was making it worse. Eventually, we started walking, because there was nothing else to do. And the idea of staying with the car felt worse than moving away from it. The first few minutes were just silence between us, and the sound of our steps on the road. But then a car appeared behind us and slowed down gradually as it reached us. It pulled alongside with an ease that made it feel like it had been waiting for us specifically. Inside was a woman in the passenger seat alone. She looked calm in a way that felt almost practiced. She asked if we wanted a lift home. Her voice was polite and steady, and the kind of voice that should have made everything easier. My friend looked at me, and I could see the quick relief in his posture before he even spoke. I remember how close we both came to saying yes, because the night felt heavier than it should. Having sitting in a car would have solved everything immediately. But something about the way she watched us without moving her eyes much made me hesitate. Not fear exactly, more like a sense that the situation was slightly misaligned with reality. My friend must have felt it too, because he shook his head first and stepped back a little. As he declined, the woman did not react the way a normal person would. There was no frustration in her expression at first, just a stillness that held too long. Then her face tightened slightly as if she had expected a different outcome, and she drove off faster than she had arrived, leaving us again in the empty road with our decision hanging between us. We started walking again, but neither of us mentioned her for a while, as if speaking about it would give it weight. It did not yet have. The road curved gently, and there were long stretches where you could see far ahead, but nothing changed except distance. That was when another car came. Different shape, different color, but slowing down in the same way. I remember how my friend's shoulders lifted before it even reached us, as if his body was bracing for something before his mind caught up. It stopped beside us again, and the window came down, and it was the same woman, exactly the same face, same calm expression, same careful way of looking at us, as if we were expected arrivals rather than strangers. I felt my stomach drop in a way I could not immediately explain, because I knew cars do not work like that on empty roads. People do not appear in identical situations like a repeated mistake. She asked again if we wanted a lift. Same tone, same phrasing, but this time there was something faintly sharper underneath it, like patience wearing thin. My friend stepped back before she finished speaking and shook his head more firmly. I did not speak at all, because I was watching her face closely, and I saw the change happen in real time. Not a dramatic transformation, just a tightening around her mouth and eyes, as if she had been holding an expression that was now slipping. She did not argue, she did not insist. She simply nodded once and drove off quickly again, faster than before. I remember thinking how strange it was that she never once looked away from us, even while accelerating. We kept walking, but the air between us felt different after that, heavier and more alert, like our bodies had started expecting repetition, and that expectation was not wrong. Because the third car came within minutes. This time, my friend actually grabbed my arm slightly before it even reached us. Not enough to stop me walking, but enough to show he had noticed the same pattern I had. When it pulled up, I already knew what we were going to see, but knowing did not make it easier. The same woman was there again, but this time she was smiling. Not a friendly smile, more like recognition, as if she had finally confirmed something she had been testing. I remember how my friend's breathing changed in a visible way, not loud, but shallow, like he was trying not to react too strongly. She asked again in the same steady voice if we wanted a lift home. But now the words felt different because the smile did not match them. It felt placed rather than natural. My friend shook his head immediately and stepped further back than before, and I did the same without thinking. The moment we refused, her expression shifted, not into anger like a normal person, but into something emptier, as if the smile had been removed and left nothing behind to replace it. She stared at us for a few seconds longer than any normal conversation would allow. Then she drove off again, but this time she did not accelerate smoothly. He was abrupt, like the car had been released from restraint, and that was when the sound started behind us. The horn from her car, continuous and harsh. Not random beeping, but a sustained pressure of sound that followed us as we kept walking. My friend flinched at the first blast and instinctively sped up, and I matched him without discussion. We were not running yet, but our pace had changed into something closer to urgency. The horn did not stop. It stayed behind us, as if the car was pacing us just out of sight. I remember thinking how impossible it was for it to still be there on a road we had already passed clear stretches of. Then my friend stopped so suddenly that I almost bumped into him. He was staring slightly to the side of the road, and I followed his gaze. There was no car visible, but the horn was still there, closer now, and in that moment we both started running at the same time without needing to agree. The road felt longer than it should have, and my breathing turned uneven as we pushed forward. I could hear my friend struggling beside me, but neither of us slowed down. We reached a point where the road narrowed slightly, and there was an opening into a side path. An alley cut between two long stretches of fencing, leading away from the main road. We turned into it without hesitation, not because it was safe, but because it was away from the sound. We ran deeper into it until the road behind us was blocked by the bend, and we stopped only when we could no longer hear the horn. My friend bent forward with his hands on his knees, trying to steady himself, and I pressed my back against the wall of the alley, feeling the rough surface grounding me in something real. We stayed there for what felt like a long time, but was probably only minutes. Neither of us speaking, just listening for anything that should not be there. We moved again carefully and made our way out of the alley, back toward familiar streets that we recognized. And with every step, the world felt more normal again, but not completely. When we finally reached a residential area with lit windows and parked cars that belonged to people who were not part of what we had just experienced, we slowed down and tried to convince ourselves it was over. A neighbor was outside her house checking something near a gate. She noticed us immediately. She asked if everything was all right, and my friend tried to answer, but his voice cracked slightly in a way he probably did not intend. I told her our car had broken down and we had to walk. She nodded, but her attention shifted behind us for a brief moment, and I turned instinctively. There was nothing there, just the empty road leading back the way we came. And in that absence, I felt something worse than fear, a kind of certainty that what we had seen was never meant to resolve into understanding. I still checked the road a little longer than necessary when I hear a car slow down behind me at night.